Law. I'm an estate planning and elder law attorney, and today we're going to be talking about your independent young adults. Is it possible? Is it not? And we're going to be sharing some insights that I have and I've accumulated over the years, talking with other wonderful parents of young adults as they age into maturity and adulthood, things that have worked for them that have been very successful. So, thank you for attending this presentation is kind of a fancy word. We're just going to have a talk about this important topic of things that you can do to help your young adult child be more independent. There's a lot of pomp and circumstance this time of year as kids graduate, whether they're graduating from high school, graduating from college, they're entering into the workforce. They're adults, and oftentimes when I talk to parents of young adults, especially when I'm talking with friends or I'm talking with my own family. It's always comes with the head scratcher. I can't believe they're really adults, or some funny quip, but yeah, they might be adults, but they're really not, right? Or can you believe it? And it's hard to imagine because they were just babies or just little toddlers, and all of a sudden now they're into the adult realm that we all live in every day. So now they're subject to all of the benefits, but also all of the responsibilities that go along with being an adult. I often talk to clients and my nieces and nephews as they're aging up, and I talk to them about the importance of these responsibilities. And then what comes with great age and maturity comes a lot of responsibility. So kind of riffing on that Spider-Man theme, with Uncle Ben is sharing with Peter Parker, the with great power comes great responsibility. That message that he had that carried throughout all the movies, and what really drove Spider-Man. Well, what's really driving your kids now is all of this responsibility that they have as young adults, and they need to know a lot of things, and you have an opportunity to help them. And the opportunity that you have, you've brought them up to this point with a lot of support, financial support, emotional support, physical support in a lot of cases. And now, how do you segue as a parent to continue to support your child in a variety of different ways, especially since they're so independent, right? So let's look at some of the things that I've learned myself, and from talking to other wonderful parents like you. These are some of the tips. Um, so, number one, it's important for them to know their legal responsibilities, because lack of knowledge is not a defense in the law. You can't say, "I'm sorry, judge, I didn't know that I couldn't do that. Officer, I didn't know that I could do that." We, as adults now, assume all of the laws that exist, and there are hundreds of thousands of different laws, both on the state level and the federal level, that we are instantaneously required to know the very day you turn 18. So this can be a very overwhelming thing, particularly because even as an attorney, don't know all the laws at the top of my head, but yet we're required by under the law to know them. So it's important to talk to your kids about some of the essentials, the laws that are going to likely affect them that they need to know. So some of those, as an example, are: did you know that you have to sign up for a draft if you're a young man and turning 18? There's a legal requirement to do that, and you'll be committing a crime if you don't. And knowing how to do that as well to fulfill that requirement. Two, being 18, you can now serve on a jury. Well, and your civic duty, what that entails, and it's not something you can simply blow off or ignore, because that too is a crime to do. And those are two examples of easy things where you have civic responsibilities that turn into criminal actions if you don't fulfill them, or you're not aware that it's something to fulfill. And you can see how easy some of our kids these days, at the sense of urgency on some of the action items, or lack of knowledge, or not really paying attention, could lead to some difficulty. And I highlight those two because those are two big ones that can come up right away. And certainly one of them does, if you're 18 and you have a son. Beyond that, there's a number of other legal responsibilities that, of course, are tied to both having civil and criminal ramifications. And a great publication that, at least here in California, the California State Bar puts out, is the Teenage Survival Guide. And it's for kids that have turned 18, and it goes through a variety of different, very popular and relevant laws that everybody should know, and it's actually a great refresher. I found it very enlightening myself on some of the topics that goes through from things on the criminal side to things on the civil side and the tax side, all the way through a variety of different topics. And so it's California State Bar puts out this publication. If you're interested in it, just simply type guide in the notes below, and we'll make sure that you get a copy, PDF copy right to you. So put guide in the notes below, and we'll be sure that you get a copy of it, because it is fantastic. A couple other things from that that are important for part of our conversation today deal with drugs and drinking and driving. Also, there are laws regarding sexual relations, and this is especially important this time of your children's lives, where they might have boyfriends or girlfriends that are younger than them, and they might be 18, 19, or 20, but their boyfriend or girlfriend is still 17. And there's legal ramifications for that if there are any sort of sexual relations that happen, and not just intercourse, but there's kissing. That's a sexual battery if it's deemed to be unwanted, something as simple as that. And that has nothing to do with what we would deem as actual sex. And you're like, come on, Kevin, this doesn't really happen. Well, in a former career, I was a public defender, and I worked in the delinquency court for 18 months and dealt with a lot of these issues where we had high school seniors that were 18 and their girlfriend or boyfriend was 16 or 17. Not an uncommon scenario. And there was parents found out that didn't like the other person. They didn't like the boyfriend. And the parents found out that there was a relationship. And so that quickly turned into a investigation and a sexual battery. And not all of it involved having intercourse. It was these, other lead ups. And so, or if there was, it was a greater offense, or if the girl was pregnant. Now there was had a couple cases where there was a crime on both ends when they're both minors. But certainly, if you have a situation, and oftentimes it's the boy is older and the girl's younger, and there are a lot of those situations could affect your young sons going off to college, because not everyone's 18 when they go off to college. Now, there could be a misassumption that, oh my gosh, they don't even know their age, but lack of the knowledge of the age is not a defense either. So these are important things to talk about. To, of course, the very important conversations about consent and consent in relationships and consent to actions. What does that really mean? And in the last 5 years, there's been a very intense, renewed focus on that for all the right reasons. And there's no social or political commentary on this. It's just a reality, right? As if your son or daughter is going off to school and they have sexual relations, there can be some consequence of that legally. Especially if there's drinking involved, drug use, and your children need to know what they're up against, what the responsibilities are. Where a yes might still end up being non-consensual sex if the situations where there was substances involved. These are all things, and knowing the state law. All right, so we know California, but what if your son or daughter is going to school in Washington, Montana, New York? Laws are different on these topics and these issues. Not greatly, but these significant nuances could have some severe consequences. So knowing the laws in which you're going to be living is important for your son or daughter, as much as it is important to you. Drinking and driving and the consequences that go along with that, or using drugs and driving, especially when now it's kind of more socially acceptable and legal. And I use legal in quotations in a number of states to use cannabis. That it's still a federal crime. So understanding and knowing that, driving that across state lines, all you have to just look at Brittany Griner's situation. And I'm not creating a hyperbole here. I know we're talking about Brittany bringing in hashish oil to Russia, and her being now charged in Russia and being held there as a detainee facing trial. There's a lot of political commentary around that. But if we just boil it down to its essence, it's going from one area to another area and the laws being different, and not realizing the ramifications of having possession over an item which was perfectly legal in one place, not legal in the other. We can make the same analogy of going from California to Arizona. and it might be perfectly capable, it might be perfectly legal to have certain substances here in California, not in Arizona. Did you know it's actually a crime to bring over recyclables from Arizona to California to cash in to recycle? Again, in a former life, I was involved in representing individuals that were prosecuted for a scheme. And if you ever watch Seinfeld, this is kind of real life parody, mimics real life type of thing. Where Kramer goes to Michigan to try to cash in all the cans to make more money because you get 10 cents for the recyclables. Well, that's actually illegal to do in California. And we had these real life situation where people were doing that, conspiring to do that, bringing in recyclables to Arizona, and it was a crime. But who would have thought that? Before I was involved in that case, I didn't know what those laws were, but I got an education, unfortunately, at the expense of my clients, whose illegal activity was being prosecuted. Now, imagine your kids doing something like that, or bringing in different drugs to Arizona, or their laws are more strict if your kids have certain prescription medications that they're not supposed to. Maybe they've gotten from their friends. Here in California, it's not as big of a deal, but in Arizona it is. You got to know that. You got to know that. As much as same with firearms. Now that they're adults, they can possess firearms. There's been a lot of conversation in the news. In fact, there's some new legislation that President Biden put into effect in regards to minors purchasing firearm, or not minors, excuse me, 18-year-olds purchasing firearms now, young people, and how more strict the background checks are. But if if any of your children possess weapons, at least knowing about it, whether it's a hunting rifle, a handgun, they've legally have it. What are the concealed carry laws in the other states? Can they transport the weapons across state lines? Are the rules for possession different? That's another example, something super easy that your child could be easily in violation of and not even realize it. So these are things that are really, really important for your kids to know. A lot of these laws, I happen to unfortunately know a lot about them from my prior experience working in the juvenile court and adult court as a public defender, but also talking to all of our young adult clients every year as they this time of year as they go off. But a lot of this is covered in that publication that I mentioned. So if you want to get that, again, put in the notes guide, and we will get you the teenage survival guide. In addition to laws, it's important to know some soft skills that kind of have gone by the wayside depending on who you talk to. Soft skills such as how to talk to people, how to engage in face-to-face, one-on-one. The last couple of years of pandemic, everyone being on Zoom, everyone being on video, we've kind of lost that ability collectively as a society, I feel, sometimes to even engage in conversation. But certainly during our formative years, think back, like we didn't have that experience. We grew up being in a classroom. We grew up being able to participate in activities, sports, extracurriculars in person. So we had a lot of just on-the-job training, so to speak, of learning how to interact with people. And so there's a lot of barriers now to that. Our young children have not had that same opportunity to socially interact. So now as they age up, it's going to be important for them to be in these workplace environments, never mind just school, but now going into the workforce, knowing how to act and going back into an office and how they need to act and get along and cooperate with other people on their teams. I can't tell you how many business owners I talk to, other fellow attorneys, own firms, but like us, but also just people not attorneys, but just in the workplace in general, employers. And they say, one of the biggest things, the hardest part is bringing people back into an office. It's not as hard for the people that were already there, that already understood the social cues and how to work together as a team in person. It's been really difficult when you're hiring new people, especially that are young, that are coming out of college or high school. They're very young. They haven't had those opportunities, those experiences. And so teaching your kids how to relate and interact with people is important. Other types of soft skills like writing thank you notes when you, whether that's a note like a phone call or an email, even a text. As much as I can rant about text messages, it's the reality. And just even a text note, a thank you when you receive something, or simply saying thank you. those seem to be skills that have unfortunately gone by the wayside. It's really important that gratitude will go a long way, and they'll stand out. Sadly, amongst their peers as somebody. Because I say sadly because really we all should be doing it, right? But not all the kids should be doing it, but they're not. But your son or daughter can stand out, and think about an employer getting a thank you, and it's like wow. And I can tell you personally that happened to me today. I got a thank you from one of the people on my team, and to me I was like, holy cow, this is like, I felt so good, and it's something that I will never forget. And so think about that's your son or daughter, the skills you're going to pass on. Resolving conflicts, knowing how to do that. And this is something we're always learning, right? Even as adults, is something. Conflict resolution is a skill we're always aspiring to. But going for your child going in, that's going to be huge. It will help them avoid a lot of problems, whether that's at the workplace, whether it's in the relationships, whether it's in school. Conflict resolution will be important. So those are just some examples of important soft skills for them to know. Then some more like hard skills. I guess those are soft skills. These would be hard skills. Hard skills aren't hard to get, but they're more, I would guess, pragmatic. And in their approach, it might require some physicality to them. So that's why they're hard skills, not soft skills. Example would be cooking. It's kind of strange to even think like, oh my gosh, someone can't cook or know how to cook, but not everyone knows how to cook. But for the survival, right? What if all the fast food joints closed down, or there were some place where they couldn't access DoorDash? Hard to imagine, but learning how to make your breakfast, learning the importance of just basic nutrition is going to give your son or daughter a leg up. How to cook an egg, really, that's kind of the measure of cooking. Can you cook an egg? If you can cook an egg, you can cook anything, right? So how to cook an egg, simple stuff, so that you can help your child survive when they're off on their own and they're creating healthy habits, nutritional habits, eating on a better schedule, better food, teaching them how to shop for ingredients, having a balanced diet. That's sort of not like managing their weight diet, but just like, what are they eating? Are they eating Captain Crunch all the time? Or are they, they're having some good roughage and they're balanced their meals, that they're not always eating meats or things that are high in cholesterol. It's not good for you. As a young person, you can kind of get by, but you're basically, not helping your body over time. And that goes along with the concept of doing good education surrounding alcohol. It's a taboo topic in our society for whatever reason it is. I think basically goes back to our Puritan foundings that we have this taboo subject of alcohol. 100 years ago, we were going through prohibition. It's still a relatively new concept to have a free society of drinking, but we have these laws that prevent people from being able to drink until they turn 21. And so it becomes this hidden thing, but it's happening, right? So it's one of those things where we can stick our head in the sand, or we can have a conversation with our kids about it. Don't let your kids go off to school without having this conversation. Because we all have the stories. Maybe it was us. Maybe it was our friends, or the people that went to school that just went wild and crazy and didn't have that knowledge of the dangers, know what they were drinking, how much they were drinking, and found themselves in a bad space. And I know when I went off to college, and that was in the late 90s, up in Boston, there was a couple of kids that died that were freshmen. One drank himself to death during a frat party at MIT, and the other one got hit by a car who running across the street like a crazy person because they were really drunk. And that was in my fall semester, and so that's just emblazoned in my brain there. But just there was the student at SC, I think it was 1 or 2 years ago as well, freshman student that died because of alcohol abuse at a frat party as well. So, these are things that are happening all the time, and we need to be frank and have frank conversations, hard conversations with our kids. Drug use as well. What are you mixing? You're drinking and you're using prescription medication. You're smoking and drinking. I already talked about the legal ramifications of drinking and driving. But what about some of the physical problems? If you get hurt or another person, or things are not accepting a drink from somebody else at a party. These are things, unfortunately, we learn the hard way, and we've survived. But the stories of people that don't survive. What's that drink laced with? Particularly if you have a daughter, is there a date rape drug in that drink? If you even if you, it's not just about women. That could happen to a man too. Probably statistically more likely to happen to a woman, as we know. So it's important to educate them. There could be other drugs laced in that drink. There can be amphetamines. There can be all sorts of other stimulants that go in there, and they don't know that they were mixed in there it wasn't for anybody to take advantage of them, but it was to elevate the party, and that doesn't do well with their body, and they have a negative reaction. So pour your own drink if you're going to drink. It's kind of the message. Know the different alcohol volumes and the impact. When I was an RA at Boston College during the World Series, this one girl on our floor drank a whole bottle of vodka and had to have her stomach pumped. And by the time we got to her, she had already drank the bottle, and her roommate was calling for help. And we 911 off to St. Elizabeth's. She had no concept of the alcohol content in the vodka and what she was drinking, what would do to her body. So, and she was only a couple months in. It was October and she was only 2 months into her freshman year. So these are things that you really need to talk about. Hard skills, other hard skills, financial education, knowing the importance of saving now and the power of the compound interest over time, and teaching good financial habits to your children. There's a great book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, would be a great thing to provide your new graduates as required reading before they leave your house. Be helpful for you if you haven't read that book. It's fantastic as far as your mentality of how you approach the conversation of money. Sometimes money is a taboo topic in families. And shouldn't be when talking to your kids. You want to get them set up financially, not just because you are leaving them things or you're gifting them things and from what you've acquired, but you want to give them that financial independence. So talking to them about credit scores will also be important. Understanding how to manage your credit score, what goes into a good credit score, how to achieve that credit. It's not just all about not having balances on your credit card, but actually using your credit, having credit and available credit. That all factors into the score. Of course, the length of time that you've had a credit card. So getting a credit card now would actually be helping your kids. But of course, you have to monitor that use as well, so that they just don't create these big balances and have a lot of credit debt that leads to bankruptcy at a young age. We don't want that, but we want to establish credit early on. We want to increase the available amount of credit. We want to pay off balances quickly. We don't want to have to use a large percentage of our credit. And there's a lot of great tools. Go to mint.com. If you have a Capital One bank account, a lot of banks have the free credit reporting that you can manage and watch your credit score. And I know Capital One does a great job because I have Capital One, and gives you tips of how to manage your credit score. Mint.com has a lot of great education and learning how to manage your credit and leveraging your credit as well to have it work for you. So your kids get to do that now. They'll be more financially independent later, so they can get the loans that they're going to need to buy a house, get a car, do things that they want to do that we know that they can't do only if they get a loan, especially buying a house. So we want to make sure that they are ahead of the game, and that will help you as well, because then they're not going to necessarily be leaning on you to co-sign something. So little tips like that. And lastly, keeping lines of communication open with your son or daughter is going to be huge, so that they can come to you asking questions, and you can give answers, and you can continue to develop that new adult relationship. You're still not going to be best buds, maybe, and that's not the idea. You're still mom and dad, and they're still your children, but now you're entering into this new phase of a relationship. It's no longer mom and dad as adults and son or daughter as minor children, but now you're on equal playing field as far as being adults, but you're still mom and dad. But so the conversation shifts, the line of communications are different, keeping that in mind. So those are some tips. There's a lot else that's out there. Like I said, that guide's excellent. So put in the notes, guide. We'll get you the teenage survival guide, not a problem. If you're interested in taking some additional steps to make sure that you as a parent can act to protect your child in a crisis or emergency, because now that they are adults, privacy laws will treat them as adults. The medical privacy laws will treat them as adults. They can only act for themselves. Nobody else can act for them. If you want to be able to step in and help your child in an emergency situation, to talk to doctors, make important decisions, help your child out in a crisis, then please talk to us about our young adult emergency plan. We have a lot of material that you can get. You can go to our website. In fact, just put young adult in the notes below, and we'll get you all the information you need about that and how you can sign up and engage with us to get a plan started for your young adult child. My name is Kevin Snyder, Snyder Law. Very passionate about helping parents protect their young adult children as they age up, so that they can be a huge success. Hopefully, this was valuable to you. Come back and watch some more of our live videos that we have, or you can go back to our library, check us out on social media, Facebook, Instagram. You can go to our website to see some of the past videos that I put out and things that I talked about. Just trying to help you guys out and manage through what can be a very difficult road sometimes to navigate through in life, because there's just so much out there, right? So hopefully this was valuable. Kevin Snyder, Snyder Law. Keep being amazing. Talk to you soon.